Hello, this is Potty Mouth by podcastworld.io, an AI search engine for podcasts that also lets you chat with AI clone of thousands of podcasts like Huberman, Joe Rogan, and more. On this podcast, we dish out hilarious and unfiltered takes on the hottest podcast episodes, breaking down the best and worst moments. Let's get started.
Okay, so you want like the inside scoop on this Pennsylvania Senate race.
We've got a real doozy for you.
Yeah, buckle up because this is going to be a wild ride.
Definitely.
We're talking billionaires, Elon Musk showing up. These candidates are total opposites.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see how this race kind of reflects, the bigger picture in American politics right now, like how much money is involved and how the media is changing.
Yeah, and we've got a ton of material to go through to try to understand all of it. Campaign rallies, media appearances, like everything.
It's a lot, yeah.
So where do we even start with all of this?
Well, to really get this whole thing, you got to understand the two main guys, right?
Sure.
So let's start with the Republican, Dave McCormick. He's the former hedge fund CEO.
Yeah.
And that rally he had with Elon Musk back in October of 24, it really shows you how he does things.
Oh, yeah. That rally was something else. It was like church bells, people parachuting in, even an opera singer doing like Ave Maria. I mean, it felt more like a show than, actual politics.
Exactly. And that seems to be like his whole thing, get people's attention, make a big splash, even if it's all kind of blurring together, the entertainment and the politics.
Right.
And then on top of all that, you had Musk showing up.
Oh, yeah.
That just added a whole other level to it.
Yeah, seeing Elon Musk, I mean, he even had the dark Magi hat and then saying that was going to be the last election ever. It was a little creepy, to be honest.
Yeah, that comment definitely ruffled some feathers. A lot of the analysts think it shows how tight Musk's gotten with some parts of the Republican Party and that he's just over this whole democracy thing.
It really makes you wonder, right? What does it say when you've got a candidate whose buddy doesn't even believe in elections anymore?
Yeah, it really shows how uneasy people are about how much power these big names have in politics these days.
Now, on the other side, you've got Bob Casey, the Democrat. He's totally different, way more down to earth, talking about his Pennsylvania roots, all of that. It's a huge difference between the two.
It really is. And that whole background thing, where they're from, that's a big deal in this race.
Yeah.
McCormick's people are saying he's an outsider, that he doesn't get the average Pennsylvania voter. And they're using stuff like that whole Yangling thing to prove their point.
Oh, man, the Yangling incident. For those of you who missed it, McCormick totally butchered the name of Yangling beer, the Pennsylvania beer at one of his events.
Yeah, and it was like this little mistake became a big symbol. People were like, see, he doesn't get us. The Casey campaign ate it up, used it with all the other times McCormick messed up to say, this guy. He's just rich and wants to buy his way in.
And speaking of buying his way in, can we talk about the elephant, or I guess the billionaire in the room?
You mean all the money those out-of-state billionaires are throwing at McCormick's campaign?
Exactly. It's nuts. Almost $70 million through just one super PAC. Like, what does that even say about our elections? You can just buy them now.
It does make you wonder about, how fair it is. Can someone actually represent regular people if they're getting bankrolled by people who live in a completely different world with different problems and priorities?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of Pennsylvanians are thinking about that right now as they decide who to vote for.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. But shifting gears a bit here, we got to talk about, well, you know who?
Trump, of course. He was at that McCormick rally, too.
Right.
And, we can't do a deep dive into politics these days without at least mentioning him, right?
Oh, he's a factor for sure.
It's like he casts a huge shadow.
Definitely. And his whole thing at the rally was clearly to fire up the Republican voters. But it also showed just how split the party is, and the whole country, really.
It felt like things got really weird when he went on about people getting murdered driving to D.C. Like, what is that even about?
That it's just not true at all.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect example of the stuff he's been saying more and more lately.
Yeah.
No real facts, just trying to scare people and make them angry. And he didn't stop there. He went on this whole rant about the media again. Even said 60 Minutes owed him an apology.
Right. It's like his favorite thing to attack the media. Makes it seem like he's some kind of hero fighting against the bad guys, so anyone who doesn't agree with him is just part of the problem.
Yeah.
It works on some people, but it also makes you worry that people are going to stop trusting anyone, And then the misinformation just spreads even more. It's a whole thing.
It's a mess. There's really no easy answer. But let's get back to McCormick and Casey. Where do they actually stand on the issues Pennsylvanians care about?
Well, we can start with fracking. That's a big one for the state, both for the economy and the environment.
Yeah, you can't go to a diner in Pennsylvania without hearing someone's opinion on fracking. It's so tied up with their jobs. But then there's the whole environmental impact and health concerns. It's complicated.
It really is.
Yeah.
And both candidates are trying to walk that line, appeal to voters without upsetting anyone too much.
Yeah.
McCormick's been saying that Casey's against fracking, even though Casey's always supported it.
Classic political move, trying to make your opponent seem extreme even if it's not true.
Exactly. And then you've got Casey trying to make everyone happy,
Right.
talking about the jobs, but also saying we need rules and got to protect the environment. It's a tough spot to be in.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in the next few weeks. But let's not forget about another issue that's huge in this race and everywhere, really. Abortion.
Oh, yeah, that's another one where they couldn't be more different.
Huh.
Shows you just how divided everyone is on this.
For sure, McCormick's all pro-life, celebrated when Roe v. Wade got overturned, but then he's also changed his mind on a federal ban, so no one's really sure where he stands anymore.
Yeah.
Casey's been clear, though. He's always been for abortion rights, even said he'd make Roe v. Wade the law again if he could. This issue alone is going to get people to the polls on both sides.
You're telling me.
It shows you this election isn't just about Pennsylvania, right? It's about where the whole country's going, what kind of future people want.
Big picture stuff.
Exactly. But, before we get too serious here, can we talk about McCormick again? Because with all the billionaire stuff and the politics, it's almost funny how much he's messing up trying to seem like a regular Pennsylvanian.
You mean all those times he's put his foot in his mouth?
Exactly. It's not just the Yangling thing, although that was amazing. But there was also that time he called Owawahogie a big gulp. And then he tried to blame Casey for how much Hershey Park tickets cost. Like, those are rookie mistakes in Pennsylvania,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it also shows how little he gets it, He just seems out of touch with what people here actually care about.
Mm-hmm.
Plays into that whole rich guy who doesn't understand us thing.
Yeah, it's like he read the Pennsylvania playbook but skipped a few chapters.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it so easy for his opponents to pick on him,
Yeah.
We'll have to see if voters care about that kind of stuff when they actually go to the polls, though.
That's true. I mean, in a race this close, sometimes it's the small stuff that matters most.
Totally. Every little thing gets blown up, every word, especially these days with social media and everything.
Speaking of which, we haven't even talked about Vice President Harris and all the media stuff she's been doing.
Oh, right.
She was everywhere. 60 Minutes, The View, even that Call Her Daddy podcast. Everybody listens to that one.
It's a really interesting approach, right?
It's smart.
Instead of just the usual political stuff, she's going everywhere, trying to reach people who might not normally pay attention.
Yeah, it's like she's trying to meet voters on their own turf.
Yeah.
Which is tough these days. Everyone's all over the place with what they watch and listen to.
For sure.
Right.
And it seems to be working, especially with younger voters and women. They're kind of over the whole traditional politics thing,
It's like when she went on Call Her Daddy and talked about what Trump said about abortion.
Right.
She didn't hold back at all, called him out right there. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah, it shows how she's trying to do both support the Biden administration, but also be her own person, a leader in her own right.
It's a tough balancing act for sure. But let's bring it back to Pennsylvania one last time. As we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts? What's the big takeaway from all of this?
I think this race just shows you what's going on in American politics overall. You've got money, you've got these big personalities, and then you've got everyone trying to figure out who to trust in this crazy world of information overload. It's like a microcosm of everything.
Yeah, and in the end, it's up to the voters in Pennsylvania, right?
Exactly.
They get to decide what kind of future they want.
And their choice is going to affect everyone, not just Pennsylvania. It reminds you that every vote, every voice, it all matters.
That's a good note to end on. So everyone listening, pay attention to how this all plays out because who knows what's going to happen next.
That's the best part. Democracy, it's full of surprises. You never know what's coming next.
This wild ride isn't over yet, folks.